Hey, 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 this is Beverly. I will not be denied Bozeman. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I appreciate it so much. Be sure and share this broadcast with your friends and your family. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so that you'll know when I drop a new video. Like and subscribe to the channel. And today, I am sharing with you guys my very first book review. I am so excited. I am so excited. This is not the first book that I've read, but this is my first time sharing a book review. And the book is entitled Finding Me, a memoir by Viola Davis. She is an American actress. If you're not familiar with her, be sure to go and Google her, or you can go to YouTube and put in Viola Davis and you can find some clips of the movies that she's done. I'll give the rating at the end, but so I listened to the audio version and she narrated the whole thing. And I thought that was awesome. I haven't read a lot of memoirs in my reading experience. I think I may have read two aside from hers. And this one was tops to me. It really was. If you don't really care to read books that have profanity, you may not enjoy this one because there's profanity in it. It's not a great deal. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably maybe a 4. And it's not just randomly placed in there. It's when, in my opinion, when she had points to make. The very first line of the very first chapter had profanity. There was a point to all of that. So if you don't really care for it, I don't know if you would enjoy it or not. But I think I'm an avid reader, right? I love to read. I don't really listen to a lot of audio books, but I just, I happen to listen to it on audio. And I think I like audio better when it's a memoir and the person who wrote the book is narrating it. Because it's like they're literally telling you what happened in this particular situation. So, I don't know. I would suggest do either. But I just happened to do it in the audio version this time. One thing I can say about this book is she was very transparent. Of course, she could never tell everything that happened to her, but she shared a lot. And it made me think that she was really trying to help us. Regardless of whether you wanted to be an actor or if you grew up in a certain area of the country and you lived in poverty, she wanted you to get the experience that she had and the lessons that she learned to make her become who she is today. She was very super duper transparent. And it was like if somebody else was telling the story, their family probably wouldn't want to talk to him anymore. She was very transparent. I was like, gosh, I didn't know, not like I knew her. She was keeping secrets from me. But you never know what people go through in life. Trying not to tell too much. I even wrote some notes so I can kind of stay within the guidelines. I don't want to spoil anything. But I can say that there were a lot of life lessons that we can take from that. And one of the things that I took from it was she was able to take the negatives of her life and use them as stepping stones to become who she is today. Of course, an Academy Award winning actress, but who she is as a person. She was very vulnerable, talking about having to go to therapy for years to overcome her childhood trauma. She grew up poor. I take that back. She grew up poor. Like they couldn't afford the O and the R on the end of poor. They were poor. I mean, and another thing that I took from it was when you think you have it bad or had it bad, you hear somebody else's story, it make you say, gosh, I ain't really going through nothing compared to them, or my life was peaches and cream compared to what they were going through. And that's another thing that I took from the book. I grew up great compared to her. And somebody else, she would probably look at somebody else's life and say, wow, I grew up great compared to you. I mean, it's all relative, according to who's doing the talking in the situations. But she had a really rough upbringing. I'm trying not to tell too much, but I got to tell this part. She grew up, she was born in Matthews, South Carolina. I believe it was Matthews. And she had 3 sisters and 1 brother. She was the youngest. And her family moved to, ended up being in Rhode Island. And 2 of her siblings stayed in South Carolina with the grandparents. And they were poor. They were like really, really poor. And she went a lot of days where the only meal she ate was at school. And they lived in rat-infested apartments. And they were scared to get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom. They shared beds. And so they ended up peeing in the bed. Going to school smelling like pee. The electricity didn't really work. No hot water, couldn't wash clothes and stuff. So she was one of those kids that went to school and had odor. Unless you went to like a private school or you were homeschooled, at some point in your school age, in your school career, elementary, middle school, high school, there were some kids that you can tell they had it rough at home. She was one of those kids. And she was very transparent about that. And it scarred her, especially the part about not being able to eat regularly. That scarred her. And when I say she was transparent, she was just super uber transparent. And so another thing was, another lesson that I took from that, I didn't have it bad compared to her. So I'm very grateful for my upbringing. She had a lot to deal with, and I'm just so amazed that she did not commit suicide, because a lot of people, if they had to, a lot of people did go through what she went through, and they ended up ending their lives early because, as adults, because it's stuff like that it takes a lot of time to get over. And sometimes you need help. And if you don't have the money to get the counseling or the psychotherapy or whatever, it just piles on top of other stuff. It's just it's stackable trauma. And some people just can't make it through. I'm just going to briefly share a couple of things that she did have to endure. She had to watch her mom get beaten, and she described it, and she got by her dad because their parents were married, and her dad used to abuse her mom so bad it used to keep them up at night, and so she couldn't get a good night's sleep, and she would go to fall asleep in class and stuff like that. And like I said, another lesson. I didn't have to watch that. I didn't have to endure that. And another thing to be grateful for, and the description of the things that he did to her with the house full of kids. And, she was very transparent about that. It led her to have to go to therapy, of course. Another thing is living in real poverty. So the moments like Valentine's Day, her dad, gave them candy and things like that. And then they had a Christmas tree. And once a year, they got like Easter dresses and stuff like that. Got their hair, curled or whatever. In the kitchen, of course. If you from, especially if you're from the South, you know about getting your hair done in the kitchen for Easter. So there were moments like that that she looked forward to. But you know, holidays are months and months and months apart. But other than that, it was just a poverty lifestyle. So she was very transparent about that. And I think one of the major things that traumatized her, I mean, there was a lot of things that traumatized her, but one of the things that traumatized her the absolute most was being chastised for the way that she looked. She was living in an area and going to a school where there weren't a lot of black kids. And she was very dark skinned and she had, you know, really kinky hair. And she got chastised for that. She got bullied for that. And, you know, being poor and smelling and having raggedy clothes and shoes didn't help the situation at all. So she had to be really, really tough. She had to be tough and fight and all of this stuff. And that was something that carried into her adulthood, because she was not considered pretty. She wasn't considered beautiful, attractive, or any of that. So she was never really considered, when she became an actor, she was never really considered for roles of a leading lady that was called to be sexy or beautiful. Always the friend, always the crackhead, or the helper, because she played in the movie The Help. She was able to get roles like that, no problem, because she had awesome acting skills and she worked her way into and graduated from Juilliard. But the fact that it took so long for her to get a leading role of a powerful person, it took her basically all of her career. And if I remember correctly, the first time she had a major role out in front as a powerful person was when she starred in How to Get Away with Murder. One of my favorite shows. One of my favorite shows. I won't even get into that, honey. But she started out in the theater and worked with a lot of actors, and she really earned her, how did they call it, acting chops. She really earned her acting chops, or her acting stripes. Well, I won't give away too much, but she worked hard, not just in learning the craft and taking low-paying jobs or no-paying jobs for the credentials having it under her belt, but she worked 2 and 3 jobs and rode buses and walked, and, you know, to be able to go to work, to afford to live on her own and stuff. But I kind of can identify with being chastised and picked on because of your looks. So that was one of the things I kind of identify with, and that stuff like that carries over into your adulthood. And she was very close with her sisters. I think that the relationship with her sisters kind of carried her through. They all experienced the same things, but once one moved out, kind of like try to help and look out for the other one. So she, you know, she did have people to talk to and lean on and all that. Another childhood trauma was she had to deal with molestation. I don't got nothing to say about that. I just don't. But anyway, she was transparent about that. I do have something to say about that. In communities, period, in households, period, you know, there's things like that, molestation that goes on. But I grew up in the 70s, and I am finding out now that girls getting molested back then was not talked about. It was swept under the rug. It was of no surprise. even within households. Now, she dealt with that in her household. She dealt with that with neighbors and babysitters and, strangers and, that sort of thing. And she talked about that. Her sisters, that happened to her sisters as well. And they were traumatized into their adulthood. But I just wanted to say that as we become adults and we look back at certain people that we grew up with, we can now say, I think that was because she was molested. When I was growing up and a girl was kind of promiscuous, the older women would call her fast. She's so fast. She's always trying to flirt with the boys, always trying to sit in a man's lap. And they were, chastised for the way they were acting. But I'm realizing that a lot of the adults that were saying that did not take into consideration that a lot of these girls were touched. Not just like groped and touched. They were raped. They call it molestation because there's touching involved. But just, physical contact. And it made me, when she talked about that, it made me think about some girls that I grew up with that I knew, like, how in the world could she be doing stuff like that at our age? Because, you overhear adults talking. They talked. Like, how could she do that? She's, my age. I couldn't even imagine. It's because somebody did that to her or somebody taught her that. And it's like, wow. When she talked about that, it just made me think about some people and stuff. Anyway, she was very transparent about that. Yeah, she graduated from, I forget the name of the college, but it is a college in Rhode Island. And then she got into Juilliard and she really worked her behind off. She really did. She had a lot of stuff stacked against her because she didn't have the money, because when she went to Juilliard, she had to live on her own. So she had to room with other people and be able to make the rent, be able to provide for herself. She had some health issues, so she went a long time without her health being taken care of. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. She did find love, and when she found love, it was the sweetest story. And it gave me hope for those who are looking for love, like real love, not somebody to take care of them, not somebody to be in a piece of arm candy or to be in a postcard with for Christmas and stuff. It just gave me hope for people who are single. And she prayed. She got down on her knees and she prayed and told God what she was looking for in a man, and she got it. She got it. She found love on the set of a show. I forget the name of the show. It only lasted about 2 years. I don't think I ever watched it. But she's been acting for a long time. I didn't realize that. And to hear her, when she talked about certain people, and she, when she met the guy, her husband, when she talked about him, she pretended like she was him, and so she tried to have his voice, and to me, it was hilarious. The way she tried to pretend like she was him. She did certain people, she mimicked their voices, and it was hilarious to me. I think that's about it overall. I feel like I'm leaving something out. So anyway, I guess you have to read it to see the other stuff. Oh, there were a lot of, she opened every chapter with a quote by somebody. And it's the kind of quotes that make you go, She had a lot of life lessons. Like I said, she had a lot of stuff that made me grateful for my life, for my upbringing. She gained a lot of wisdom, and there were a lot of tragedies, but she, overcame it. And I would give this book a 10 out of 10. a 10 out of 10. It was just dynamite. I think that she needs to turn the book into a movie or a play and just go from there. It was just dynamite. I think that you would enjoy reading it or listening to it. You know, some books are better if you listen to them. If you listen to them because the narrator gives it power and it makes it seem like you're there because of the tone of their voice or the inflection of the voice, the pronunciation of certain words. But some books, they're better off being read by the reader because you can play it out in your mind and you can stop and go back and reread it for more emphasis. But I think this book is great either on audio or just a physical print. So awesome. Be sure and go and check it out. So that's about it. Remember to release your genius, pull off the impossible every day. Remember, you will have whatever it is that you say. So be positive when you speak, Queen.